Hi, I'm John Tickles, and welcome to Remote RPGs, the Horror Edition! Ready for something scary? How about the Star Wars prequels? No? Oh, okay. How about opening your Phoenix Wright DS game case, but the game isn't there? Nothing? Okay. I gotta pull out the big guns. Holy shit, it's a manware dog! It's coming for your soul! No, come on girl, look terrifying. You don't get a birthday this year. It. I tried. There's not many straight-out horror RPGs, unless the idea of random battles scares you away, but the lack of mixing within the horror and RPG genre is because it's likely tougher to mix scares with slower action and strategy. However, there are some notable exceptions, like the Parasite Eve series. But what if I told you that there was one released in 1989 by Capcom? A horror-themed RPG that's often called the granddaddy of survival horror. That could only be Sweet Home for the NES. And no, it's not a house made of candy. Sweet Home is a really early RPG, only released in Japan. Way too graphic for us pansy-ass North Americans. Before I get into it, I have to mention that the Happy Video Game Nerd did an excellent review of this game already. So, if you'd like to see a reviewer with some actual charisma and talent, then how dare you cheat on me! I thought we've been through so much, but we're breaking apart lately. You never call, visit me at work, or even bring me flowers. It's over, Jenny. But he's a horror game enthusiast. I hope to give you more perspective of an RPG aficionado, and someone who's kind of terrified of anything horror related. Sweet Home follows the tale of 5 treasure seekers, looking in the abandoned Mamiya mansion, which, 30 years earlier, had been owned by the famous artist, Ichiro. However, the artist and his family disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and this group is looking for Ichiro's frescoes. No, not the Canadian grocery store. Frescoes are pretty much just paintings. However, upon entering the mansion, they unfortunately discover that it's haunted as shit, and the ghost of Ichiro's wife, Lady Mamiya, is haunting the house and locks the group inside, and no, I don't know why they don't just jump out a window. It's up to this group to navigate the trap-filled nightmare, discover the dark past of the mansion, and escape alive. The characters don't really have, well, characters. There's the medic, the photographer, the vacuum person, who I actually think's a woman, and that's kind of funny, the key holder, and some dude with a lighter. You can actually name all your characters off the bat, which is the closest thing to a character they get. Not that I expected much from an NES title. However, the story is pretty badass. Seriously, I didn't think the NES was capable of this kind of storytelling. A storytelling that's simplistic but really subtle and just riveting. I can't give anything away, but they give you bits and pieces of the dark history of this mansion, and it's so simple and creepy with some hideous twists. It just always keeps you on edge. There's already something inherently creepy about NES games in my opinion, as someone who never grew up with them. I can't really explain it. If Sweet Home was ever released outside of Japan, and as the HBGN says, fat goddamn chance, I think it would get an M rating at least, unless they just censored the whole thing somehow. Seriously, there's some dark, gruesome, and downright terrifying imagery in some of these plot points and visuals. As someone who's not a horror fan, I'm glad to say that scaredy cats like me will probably be able to stomach this, because it is an 8-bit console, and no, that's not a hit on the system, because what it managed to do was incredible, even with something so simple as opening a door. All in 1989. The same year Thomas and Friends arrived in the US. Sweet Home combines Dragon Quest-style RPG action with survival horror, and for a 1989 title, it was way ahead of its time in both respects. You have to navigate the mansion with 2 separate parties, a group of 3 and a group of 2. Or you can just put everyone alone if you're an idiot or a masochist. There's a special emphasis on item management in Sweet Home. The mansion is the old place you get to go, and it is humongous with secrets, traps, and items galore. And when I say the only place, I mean there aren't any towns or overworlds. You are trapped here, forced to explore and find everything you need right here. Nowhere is safe. The gameplay mostly consists of you searching for a way across the mansion, finding keys, items, and tools to make your way across various hazards and obstacles. However, these tasks are made extremely difficult thanks to various traps such as falling chandeliers, spontaneous combustion, evil spirits that drag your party across the mansion, and much more. Always keeping you on edge, afraid of what's around each corner. And you can't just stock up on powerful items like most RPGs. There's not a lot of space in terms of how much your characters can carry, so you have to keep your team close, and always have what item you need nearby. In addition, each character has a special item of sorts that's integral for navigation. The medic keeps everybody healthy, the key holder can open locked doors, the vacuumer can get rid of obstacles or even clean frescoes, the photographer can take pictures of frescoes, which give you important hints, and the guy with the lighter can burn shit. There's a lot of strategy in who you keep with who's here, who's in that room, who's upstairs, who's downstairs. There's a lot to keep track of. And there's one more catch. Once a character dies, they are gone for good. Dead. Shuffled off the mortal coil. They leave behind a body and their items, and you have to use alternative items with less characters, making your journey that much more difficult. I haven't run into anything like this since the Fire Emblem series, and just to see it here is particularly scary. It can be a bitch, but since you can save anywhere, it's not really a huge issue if you don't have any moral issues with copping out, like me. The puzzles in the game are rather interesting. Most of the time, the challenge is in the navigation, finding out where the hell you have to go, what item you have to use, what does what, who should carry what, and such. However, typical for an NES game, the clues can be so awfully cryptic, especially in terms of what items you need, when you need to do something special like pray. For those of you not intimate with old school ambiguity and exploration, have a walkthrough nearby, though it will cut the playtime down. I finished this game in about 10 hours, if I remember correctly, give or take an hour. So it's a great game to finish on a Halloween weekend, late at night. The main goal is, appropriately, surviving this mansion, especially because healing items are finite, and there's no inns or whatever. Thankfully, running out of healing items, called tonics in the game, is only a bigger issue earlier in the game, because you eventually do find a good chunk of them if you know where to look. So with traps, surprises, and navigation being the majority of what you deal with in Sweet Home, it's a survival horror in every sense of the word. However, in terms of scares, it's not the story, or the monsters, or anything like that that's the scariest thing in the game. No, that belongs to the menus! Oh my god, when you first start up this game, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack in the middle of a tornado blindfolded. It's like trying to find an anime without fan service. I know it was the norm for the time, but if you timed it, I wouldn't be surprised if most of the time playing Sweet Home was working through these damn menus. However, I'm glad to say that once you do get a hang of the menus and what everything does, you'll get used to it within the first couple of hours. Hopefully, otherwise you're screwed. Now let's get into the bigger RPG element, the battle system. Sweet Home has random battles, where you get dragged into fights with many creepy things. There are even some elements of Persona and Earthbound-like random battles where you can see the enemies on screen, and that's the earliest instance of this I can think of. The actual battles are Dragon Quest basic RPG style, where you get to attack, use items, or pray your sorry ass off, which is kind of like this game's magic. See, you get a limited amount of prayer points, where you have to use your reflexes to dish out some big damage. In addition, battles are really quick, with usually only one enemy attacking you at once, and leveling up is done within a very reasonable amount of time, which is completely different than most RPGs of the time. That's not to say battles are easy, Actually, you always have to be on your toes, thanks to the aforementioned limited healing items and the threat of death always looming. Another interesting feature is that you can call in another group into your battle, as they can physically walk over to you in the middle of a battle and enter the fray. It's a really innovative feature that adds yet another level of strategy to the experience. In terms of leveling up itself, again, I never had to power level. In fact, I'm pretty sure the game caps you off at 20. It's great to have such a to-the-point RPG where you never feel like you're wasting your time, which is an issue I found with a lot of the RPGs at the time. If I had to complain about anything battle-wise, I disliked how there was only one boss battle in the whole game, and it was right at the very end. And later in the game, where experience points don't mean jack shit, I never found any way to really avoid these random battles that were beginning to grind my gears. Still, the battle system was way ahead of its time and really does a good job of meshing the horror aspects with the RPG. The graphics in the game were eerily perfected. The locations are memorable and interesting, the cutscenes were very graphic, and the enemy designs were just alive. There's a surprising amount to see, and it's all well themed and just makes your skin crawl. You never want to be in this place. If I had to complain, I'd say that the character models were pretty funny looking, but on the other hand, most graphics of the time were. Still, amazing for 1989. The music is just as solid, with some great pieces that never offer you any tranquility, always keeping your blood pumping and your mind racing. The theme that led into random battles was particularly effective, and just exemplifies another way in which this game can freak you the hell out. In conclusion, I've said it the whole time, and I'll say it again. This game is a wonder for 1989. It established not only survival horror video game conventions, but I would argue it contributed some important developments to how RPGs themselves should be structured. The story is chillingly gripping. The navigation is old school but still good. There's a gritty challenge to it. The battling is simple but intuitive, along with some great graphical and sound design. It's the perfect Halloween game for RPG fans, making it sad that the only way to play it is via a fan translation of the Japanese ROM. There is no way it would have made past Nintendo's censors back in the day, or hell, even today, for just how graphically gruesome it was. However, although there are things that count as jump scares, and it can be pretty scary at some points, I think that the average teenage or later gamer can handle the scare factor. I would recommend this game to fans of NES RPGs, horror fans, or pretty much anyone who can be patient with this old school RPG gameplay. It may be worthy of being called one of the best RPG experiences on the system, especially just considering how far ahead of the time it was. It comes highly recommended. Well, that's all for now. I'm John Tickles, and I look forward to our next random encounter.